Seriously, think about it for a second. How did our ancestors wrap their heads around complex cosmic truths? How did they visualize life, death, and the sheer vastness of the universe thousands of years before digital technology even existed? They obviously didn't have telescopes or supercomputers. They just had their environment, their own bodies, and their incredibly profound imaginations. They literally had to invent a visual language from scratch that could instantly communicate the deepest mysteries of existence.
So, let's start with Section 1, Visualizing the Divine, focusing on ancient cosmic symbolism.
You see, back in the ancient world, early humans didn't just jot down abstract philosophical ideas. They took these massive concepts and packaged them into really profound physical symbolism. They used physical forms to make the invisible, well, visible. Take Hindu iconography, for example. Lord Shiva is often depicted with this striking blue throat, which is known as Nilkantha. According to the sacred texts, during the churning of the cosmic ocean, this deadly poison emerged that threatened to literally destroy the entire universe. So Shiva, in an act of just boundless compassion, swallowed it and held it right there in his throat. It's a brilliant visual shortcut. When a devotee sees that blue throat, they instantly grasp the concept of divine capacity to absorb negativity and protect the world. And when you add in the Ganges River flowing from his matted hair, which symbolizes the flow of purity and grace, you've basically got an entire theological system written right onto the physical body. And this brilliantly illustrates a common thread we see across so many ancient cultures. Just look at the stark contrast here. On one side, we've got the Germanic and Norse god Odin. Legend has it that Odin willingly sacrificed one of his own eyes in exchange for profound wisdom and knowledge of the cosmos. On the other side, like we just talked about, Shiva physically absorbs a deadly poison to protect creation. Both of these ancient traditions used extreme physical transformation, whether it's losing an eye or a throat turning blue, to convey the incredibly heavy burden of divine knowledge and duty. The physical body was essentially the ultimate canvas for these concepts.
And we see this exact same mastery of symbolism over in ancient Egypt. The Egyptian gods weren't just, bizarre, random monsters. They functioned as a highly sophisticated visual language. The jackal head of Anubis, that wasn't random at all. It represented protection in the afterlife. The green skin of Osiris directly mirrored the vegetation of the Nile, representing rebirth. The falcon head of Horus mapped perfectly to the sky and to kingship. Literally every physical trait was a piece of a complex puzzle, functioning as this hyper-efficient way to communicate the interplay between nature and humanity.
All right, moving right along to Section 2, the algorithmic canvas, and how AI is changing divine visualization.
Because we are currently living through a truly monumental pivot. The medium for visualizing these divine and cosmic forces is shifting right beneath our feet. We're moving away from stone, papyrus, and traditional paint, and we're basically handing the brush over to machine learning. For millennia, our sacred texts, like the Vedas, the Eddas, the hieroglyphs, they were translated into traditional paintings and stone carvings. But today, the canvas looks radically different. We are now utilizing generative AI to conjure the infinite. And as we look ahead to the future, we're moving fast toward fully immersive, AI-generated environments that surround us completely. And you don't even have to wait for the future. You can see this happening right now. Take the Mahashivaratri festival. Modern devotees are actively turning to AI. They're typing in prompts to generate incredibly detailed, hyper-realistic images of a cosmic Shiva, surrounded by galaxies, or Lord Nataraja performing the cosmic dance. It is such a fascinating evolution of devotion. And why this really matters is that the fundamental human desire to see the divine remains exactly the same as it was in the ancient world. The only difference is that the tool used to render it is now a neural network.
Which brings us to Section 3, the algorithmic debate, looking closely at preservation versus AI art.
Now, handing over our cultural heritage to algorithms, that opens up some massive questions. Recently, a Bangalore-based engineer named Dhruv Doti actually went viral with an AI-generated reel. He noticed the internet was totally obsessed with Japanese Ghibli aesthetics, and he wanted to create a daisy pivot. So he used AI to reimagine 14 iconic Indian painting traditions like Warli and Pichwai. And his stance is pretty pragmatic. He's saying, look, AI is already here, so let's use it as a tool to spark interest and celebrate these rich, traditional art styles for a new digital audience.
But as you might guess, that approach immediately sparked a pretty serious debate. Critics are pointing out a very real danger here, noting that marginalized groups are under threat of extinction if AI filters appropriate their style without giving proper recognition.
There's this profound concern that digital reinterpretations risk turning deep cultural heritage into just a detached, trendy aesthetic. The fear is that AI algorithms might grab the distinct styles of these communities and essentially dilute all the meaning behind the original, human-made art. So it's a really crucial debate about preserving heritage versus mass digital consumption.
That leads us nicely into Section 4, the emergence of AI cinema and this entirely new algorithmic vision.
This whole debate over who or what holds the brush really pushes us out onto the digital frontier. We aren't just using AI to make static images anymore. We're stepping into an era where AI takes over the role of vision entirely, creating a completely new medium. To understand this, we really need to grasp two concepts: AI cinema and apophenic vision. Scholars and artists are exploring how algorithms can process massive, basically incomprehensible data archives, think millions of images of deep space, and actually uncover invisible patterns. The AI then hallucinates or visualizes those connections to create continuous, immersive narratives. So it's not human vision anymore, it's a new, distinctly algorithmic way of seeing the world.
To really put this into perspective, take a look at a raw data set from NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. To the human eye, this just looks like complete chaos, right? It's pixelated, unintelligible noise. We can't derive any real meaning from this visually. But to an algorithm, this is the raw archival data. This is the invisible reality that machines use as their foundational starting point to build something entirely new.
But when an AI gets its digital hands on that exact same raw data, it creates mind-blowing installations like these ones by the artist Refik Anadol. You've got machine memoirs on the left and Renaissance dreams on the right. The AI has processed millions of archival images and transformed that raw, chaotic noise into these incredibly immersive cave-like environments. The walls and floors are literally alive with evolving data streams. It fundamentally changes the cinematic experience. You aren't just sitting back and watching a story on a flat screen, you are stepping inside the mind of the machine as it dreams about the universe.
What's wild is that this is causing a profound philosophical shift in how we actually experience awe. Historically, philosophers always talked about the natural sublime, that feeling of overwhelming smallness you get when you're standing before a massive mountain or a raging ocean. But today, AI cinema is introducing what we call the digital sublime. It's this hypnotic fascination with massive machine-processed data. The overwhelming power isn't nature anymore. It's the sheer, unfathomable complexity of our own digital creations and our absolute reliance on AI just to make sense of it all.
And that takes us to our final part, Section 5, Digital Heritage Ethics and the True Cost of AI Vision.
So as we're standing there, totally mesmerized by these new digital creations, we have to ask ourselves, what happens when we hand our human history over to them? We're facing a really profound ethical horizon here. We absolutely have to anchor this technology in ethics because algorithms are not inherently neutral. If we train an AI on biased data, it's going to reproduce and even amplify those human prejudices. That's data discrimination. But honestly, perhaps the most subtle danger is false optimization. This happens when an algorithm is designed to prioritize clicks and engagement above literally everything else. It sacrifices the messy, authentic diversity of real culture just to show us what it thinks we want to see, which, of course, dictates the exact version of reality you see in your feed every single day.
In fact, educational researchers have a specific term for this risk: cultural impoverishment. If we let recommender systems dictate how we access our heritage, we risk losing our curricular biodiversity. Instead of having a rich, complex library of distinct, vibrant human cultures, the algorithm just repackages everything into a sterile monocrop. It becomes a homogenized feed of highly engaging but totally contextless digital aesthetics.
Which brings us full circle to a final, really provocative thought for you to take away. We started today with the ancient myths. We saw that Odin willingly sacrificed his own physical eye to gain universal wisdom. Today, we are outsourcing our vision to artificial intelligence. We're allowing algorithms to process our data, to picture our gods, and to curate our entire history. And yes, the technology is absolutely breathtaking, but we really have to ask ourselves, in this new digital canvas, what is the true cost of our new vision? What exactly are we giving up? I want you to think about that the next time an AI shows you the world. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I'll see you next time.